Okay, so you know how it is, right? You can follow movies, you understand podcasts, maybe even read English books pretty easily.
The comprehension is there.
Exactly. But then when it's actually your turn to speak, it feels like that fluency, that easy flow, it's just not quite there.
Yeah, that gap. It's a really common frustration.
Well, this deep dive is focused squarely on that specific issue.
Huh.
How do you bridge that gap between, understanding English and really speaking it fluently?
Sounds good. What's the source material?
We dug into this really helpful YouTube video. It's called You Understand English But Can't Speak. Do this to finally talk fluently.
From English with Collins. I think I've seen some of their stuff.
That's the one. And our mission today, really, is to pull out the best, most actionable tips from that video. Stuff to help you finally start speaking English with, well, more confidence.
Okay. And what's the main takeaway they highlight?
The core problem identified is pretty clear. Just listening and reading all that passive intake, it's just not enough on its own.
Right. Doesn't magically make you a speaker.
Exactly. You need active production. You actually have to, speak, make the sounds.
That's such a crucial point. It gets missed a lot, I think. It's like trying to learn basketball just by watching games.
Yeah. Good analogy.
You can understand all the rules, you can admire the player's skills, but until you actually pick up the ball and start dribbling, start shooting, well, you're not playing basketball.
You're just watching.
Exactly. And language is so similar. You build up all this understanding, this input, but the actual pathways for output, for producing the language, those need specific active practice.
Okay, let's really get into this input versus output thing then, because the video makes a really strong argument that, well, maybe this applies to you listening, that many learners spend so much time on input.
Listening to music, watching videos, reading articles.
Which is all good stuff, don't get us wrong.
Yeah.
But the speaker in the video really emphasizes that we often, neglect the active speaking part. We stay spectators.
Right. So how do we get off the bench, so to speak? What's the practical advice?
Well, the video suggests a starting point that's honestly surprisingly simple. Just repeating sentences aloud.
Repeating sentences.
Yeah. And they even give 5 specific examples to get you started.
Interesting. What are they? Let's hear them.
Okay, so the first one is, today I woke up early and made some coffee. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Everyday stuff. Easy to visualize.
I understand English, but I want to speak it more confidently. Hits the nail on the head, right?
Directly addresses the core issue, yeah.
Third, I am not perfect, but I'm improving every single day. That's more of a mindset thing, an affirmation.
That's a powerful one. Important for motivation.
Then, right now I'm watching a video to help me speak better English. Kind of meta, connects it to the present moment.
Clever. Grounds the practice.
And the last one, mistakes don't scare me anymore. They help me learn, which tackles a big, big barrier for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. The fear factor. Okay, so you repeat these sentences aloud.
Exactly. The key is aloud, not just reading silently in your head. You got to engage your voice, your mouth, hear yourself actually speaking English.
Makes sense.
And the practical advice is, make it a daily habit. Pick 5, maybe 10 sentences, they could be these ones or others you find, and just repeat them out loud several times.
It sounds almost too simple. But maybe that's the point.
I think so. Sometimes those foundational exercises are the most powerful. Why do you think repeating like that actually works? What's going on there?
Well, a few things, I think. On a purely physical level, you're building muscle memory for your tongue, your lips, your jaw. It's like doing reps at the gym, but for your mouth.
A mouth workout. Got it.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And mentally, it forces your brain to actively retrieve and produce the grammar, the vocabulary, not just passively recognize it when you hear or read it.
Oh, okay. Active retrieval.
Right. And then there's the auditory feedback loop. When you hear yourself, you might notice pronunciation things, maybe rhythm issues that you just wouldn't catch otherwise.
That makes sense. You become your own first listener in a way.
Exactly. And the video stresses consistency, right?
Yeah.
Even just a few minutes every day. That adds up over time.
Definitely. Which flows nicely into the next point, actually. The importance of speaking every single day. Even if you're just talking to yourself.
Right. We're moving beyond just repetition into more spontaneous, even if private, speech.
Yeah, the speaker in the video mentioned that for them, personally, reading aloud actually helps their comprehension.
Interesting. How so?
It's like engaging more senses, maybe, making the language more active, more concrete, even when reading.
I can see that. It forces you to process it differently.
And then they bring up this technique called the mirror method.
Ah, yes. Talking to yourself in the mirror. It sounds a little out there, maybe.
It does sound a bit strange at first, I admit, but the logic behind it seems pretty solid.
That's the thinking.
Well, it adds a visual feedback element. You're not just hearing yourself speak, you're seeing yourself speak.
Right, seeing your mouth movements, your facial expression.
Yeah. Exactly. Which can apparently be really helpful for spotting and maybe correcting, awkward pronunciation habits or mouth shapes you weren't aware of.
Okay, I can see the value in that. Visual feedback. Plus, it's a completely private space. Right.
Totally. No judgment, no pressure. Just you and your reflection, practicing, experimenting, building that baseline confidence.
Yeah.
What do you think stops people from trying something like that?
Probably just feeling self-conscious. A bit silly, maybe.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
But maybe the way to overcome it is just to reframe it. Like you said, it's not a performance.
Right.
It's targeted practice. It's like an athlete reviewing game tape,
Right.
but for your speech.
Good way to put it. Maybe just start small, like 1 minute in front of the mirror, see how it feels.
Yeah, ease into it. The key, as the video emphasizes, is just getting those speaking muscles working regularly, even in private. It becomes less weird the more you do it.
And hopefully more natural your English sounds over time.
Precisely. And that idea of small, consistent action leads right into the next technique they mention, the 30-second rule.
Right. Another simple but potentially powerful tool.
How does that one work?
Super straightforward. The idea is every day, just speak English out loud for 30 seconds.
Just 30 seconds?
Yep. Set a timer
Yeah.
and talk about, well, anything.
Anything at all? Like what?
Literally anything that talks into your head. The weather, what you see around you, how you're feeling, what you did this morning, your plans. It doesn't matter.
Okay. And the goal isn't perfection.
Not at all. The video really stresses this. The goal is purely activation, getting that speaking part of your brain switched on.
Bypassing the overthinking.
Exactly. You only have 30 seconds. You don't have time to perfectly craft every sentence or worry endlessly about grammar. You just talk. Let it flow, however imperfectly.
I like that. It's about building the connection between thought and speech in English, right? That spontaneous link.
That's the idea. Bridging that gap where you know the words but struggle to put them together in real-time conversation.
It's like a quick mental jog for your speaking ability. Gets things warmed up.
Yeah, like starting the engine, as you said earlier, getting the brain and mouth used to working together quickly, moving away from that slow, deliberate translation process in your head.
It makes perfect sense. Small bursts of activation.
Mm-hmm. But of course, speaking to yourself, or for 30 seconds is one thing. To really get fluent, you eventually need, well, other people.
Right. Real interaction. Which leads to the next piece of advice, I assume.
Exactly. The video encourages moving beyond just classes or structured practice and actively trying to join real conversations.
Okay. How do they suggest doing that? Just jumping in.
Well, politely, of course. But yeah, the idea is to look for opportunities. Maybe you overhear people talking about something interesting at work or socially, or find online groups related to your hobbies.
So seeking out chances to use English in, like, unscripted situations.
Precisely. Putting yourself in spots where you have to listen and respond on the fly. It might feel a bit intimidating at first, definitely.
Oh, for sure. That on-the-spot pressure can be tough.
But the video argues that's where the real growth happens. You're forced to adapt, understand different accents maybe, think on your feet. It pushes you towards more articulate, fluent speech.
Yeah, you're out of the controlled environment of a lesson or textbook. You're in the messy, dynamic reality of actual communication.
Right. And they even mention the creator is thinking about building an online community specifically for this kind of practice, which sounds like a great idea.
Definitely. Creating those safe but real spaces for interaction is key.
Which brings us nicely to the final big point, and honestly maybe the most important one psychologically.
Okay, which is?
Embracing mistakes. Actually seeing them as part of the mission, not as something to be terrified of.
The M word. Yes. Crucial.
The video really reframes errors. They're not failures. They're feedback. They show you where you need to work.
That shift in perspective is huge. So many learners are paralyzed by the fear of saying something wrong.
Totally. The speaker even shared their own struggles, like with articulation, and how it was only by making mistakes, reading aloud, looking things up, practicing pronunciation, basically, working through the errors that they actually improved.
Yeah, learning from them, not being stopped by them.
And there's this powerful line in the video, fear of mistakes kills fluency.
Oof. That hits hard, but it's true, isn't it? If you're too scared to open your mouth, how can you possibly get fluent?
You can't. So the advice is basically lighten up about mistakes.
Easier said than done sometimes, but yeah.
Laugh at them, figure out what went wrong if you can, and just try again. It's part of the
Hmm.
process.
And remembering that even native speakers make slips. We stumble over words, use awkward phrasing sometimes. It's normal.
Exactly. It's not about achieving flawless perfection. It's about communication. And
Mhm.
accepting imperfection helps lower that anxiety and just lets you talk more.
Right. Permission to be imperfect. That's
Yeah.
really freeing.
So if we kind of wrap this all up, the core message from the video seems to be fluency comes from doing, from active output.
Not just passive input. Yeah, you've got to actually speak.
And that means consistent daily practice, even if it's small things like repeating sentences or that 30-second rule.
Mhm. Leveraging self-talk, the mirror method.
And then stepping out, finding real conversations to join when you feel ready, or maybe even before you feel totally ready.
And crucially, changing your relationship with mistakes. Seeing them not as roadblocks, but as, like, signposts.
Guiding you forward, exactly. It's about the action, the consistency, and the mindset.
Makes sense. Very practical advice.
Definitely. So here's something to think about, maybe. If you really dedicated just, say, 5 minutes every single day to actively speaking.
5 minutes, not a huge commitment.
Right. Repeating sentences, talking to your reflection, doing that 30-second challenge. If you did that consistently, how might your confidence, your actual speaking ability, start to change over the next few weeks, the next few months?
Yeah, what difference could that small, consistent effort make?
What conversation out there are you now maybe just one step closer to being able to join?